choir, right? Didn't we? Even if we can't sing, we sounded great tonight. So you can go home and tell your better half, if you have one, that you sounded great, that the pastor said that. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. When Rick asked if I would take some time to kind of share, really kicking off the new year, I thought, yeah, absolutely, I would love that. Because I believe there's something incredible that can happen if God gets a hold of the heart of the men of this church. And not just this church, but in any church. Because usually it's the guys that are lagging behind. Look at your neighbor and say, you're lazy. Right? Again, you came to church to be encouraged, right? You came to be encouraged. But sometimes, guys, we're working and we're doing all of those things that when it comes to the spiritual aspect of things and maybe leading our homes and leading our families, a lot of times that falls to the ladies. And that's just being honest. And I've been part of the church for a long time, but I know incredible things happen when guys step up into their God-given calling, in their destiny to be a man, to lead their home, to lead their family. Incredible, amazing, beautiful things happen. And my prayer is that tonight would almost be a catalyst night for you to begin to understand that, regardless of where you're at in your faith, regardless of maybe you're a mature believer, maybe you're just kind of entering into that journey, or maybe you're on a journey to discover faith. Wherever you're at, that tonight could be a moment when you begin to understand that God's called you for greatness. That God has actually called you for greatness, that God wants you. And there's a portion of scripture in the Old Testament in the book of Ezekiel, and it says this. It says in Ezekiel 22:30, I look for a man among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in a gap on behalf of the land, so I would not have to destroy it. But it says this, I found none. I found none. And I think what a detriment, even to the time back then, and even if God was to look at the church today. Hey, I'm just looking for one. I'm just looking for one guy that might step up and begin to stand in the gap, to begin to fight for their families, to begin to fight for their wives, to begin to fight for their kids, to begin to fight for their friends, to begin to stand in that place and say, I'll be that guy. Maybe you've ever heard this quote. Henry Varley said, the world has yet to see what God could do with one man fully devoted to God. The world has yet to see what God can do with one man fully devoted to God. Can I tell you something? I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy that, man, I'm so fully devoted that I can just, whenever God says here, I'm there. When he says go here, that I'm there. That I'm so in tune with what he is doing. And so what I want to do tonight is I want to share with you about a guy who had incredible potential, but he fell really short. He really missed the mark of what God was calling him to do. And there was nobody else to blame but himself. You ever notice as guys, we can easily pass the buck? Pretty easily. We don't like to take ownership, right? We don't like to kind of look in the mirror and say, that one's on me. That one's on me. But there are moments in our life, in our faith, where we need to do that. And we need to understand that it's nobody else's fault for where we're at. It's us. The choices and the decisions that we make are why we're where we're at. You're exactly where you want to be right now. In your faith, you are exactly where you want to be. Because there is an opportunity for you to move forward and to do all that. So Samson had this, his accomplishments are legendary. When you read the book of Judges and when you get into his story, his accomplishments are remarkable, what he was able to do, but so are his weaknesses. And they shine through really, really quick. And he had so much God-given potential, like every single one of us. Like every single one of you had so much God-given potential, yet again, he made bad decision after bad decision, and he ended up self-destructing. Like I see so many guys do today. That I've seen so many guys in my now almost 30 years of working in the church. I've seen so many guys self-destruct. And it comes down to this, Samson, and I will say this, Samson was an incredibly strong man with a dangerously weak will. And isn't that where we're all at? A lot of us, we can say, I'm strong and I got this, but a lot of times we know our will is pretty weak. And so let me lay a little bit of the backstory, because maybe you don't even know who Samson is, or maybe you're very well versed in the story of Samson. So what has happened? The Israelites, they've been unfaithful to God. They've been unfaithful to God, and now they're crying out, and God put them under the rule of the Philistines. And for years and years, they're crying out, and God finally says, okay, maybe you've learned your lesson. I'm going to raise up a deliverer for you. I'm going to raise up a judge. I'm going to raise up a guy named Samson, and he's going to lead you, and he's going to lead you out of the bondage from the Philistines. And Israel's like, great, amazing. Samson is such an incredible guy that his birth was actually announced by an angel, and you can read it in Judges 13. The angel says to the mom that she's sterile, she's not able to have kids, that you're going to conceive and give birth to a son. And he's going to be set apart from birth. You're going to raise him as a Nazarite. He's going to be set apart from birth to deliver God's people from the Philistines. He's going to be a Nazarite. And that was a special vow that somebody would take. You can read about that vow in Numbers chapter 6 if you're curious about it. It was actually a vow really made for non-priestly people. Non-priestly people, that they can actually make a special vow of commitment to the Lord. And it was really simple. Their life was kind of governed by three things. They were not able to drink wine. They weren't able to eat anything unclean, and they did not cut their hair. They were not allowed to cut their hair. And for as long as their vow was, this is what they would do. And you would say, well, why the hair? Why would they not be allowed to cut their hair? I get the unclean stuff, but why their hair? Got to understand, just like baptism, what is baptism? It's an outward symbol of what's going on in our heart, right? Just like I wear a wedding ring, it is an outward symbol that I am committed to my wife, Melissa. The long hair for a Nazarite was an outward sign. It was a visible sign to let people know, say, hey, I'm serving God. I'm going after God and I'm loving God. And with all of the greatness that has been kind of destined for Samson, he did some amazing things. He did some incredible things. The strength that this guy had, so much so when God's strength came upon him that he killed 1,000 Philistine men like that. He's the type of guy that you want on your side in a bar fight, right? I picked Samson. Samson's, he's with me. But yet with all of this God-given potential, he would rip a lion apart and kill it with his bare hands. With all of this incredible strength, he got himself in trouble time and time again. And we're going to watch. And as you read, I encourage you to read the story in Judges. You see that he ends up betraying God for a handful of honey. Think about that. Betraying God for a handful of honey. How short-sighted is that? You can watch as the temper gets the best of him, where he loses a bet and he unrighteously kills 30 innocent men and takes their clothes for a bet that he lost. You'll watch time and time again as he falls victim to pursuing the wrong kind of women, right? That's never happened to any guy, right? Never happened to any guy like that. His lust for women again and again get him in trouble. And you see that in his story. And so what I want to do, because I could talk for a whole lot on this, and I don't want to go too long because I want to give you an opportunity to respond to God. But Samson's life, it shows three very specific attitudes that make strong men weak. And these attitudes, they stand the test of time. And these attitudes, they might be evident in your life. And maybe God orchestrated this tonight for you to be here, to hear this, so it would resonate and say, I need to change. I need to change. So look at your neighbor and say, listen up, because this is for you. Three things. And they're not difficult things, and you're all going to agree with me. Every single one of these things, you're going to nod your head. Yes, I get it. I understand it. Lust, entitlement, and pride. Lust, entitlement, and pride. Those three things make strong men very, very weak. And what is lust? Lust is, I want it. I want it. I want it. That's what lust is. And what happens when we fall prey to lust, it's like we forget all logic. And guys' minds go cuckoo and crazy when they struggle with lust. It's about getting caught in the thrill of the moment to satisfy our flesh for just that moment. And then the guilt and the shame that comes after it. And lust robs and destroys so many strong men and makes them weak. And how do we see this in Samson's life? Well, Judges 14 in verses 1-2, Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. Now, Timnah, if you look at the geographical region, it was Philistine territory about 4 miles from Samson's village in Zorah. 4 miles. He left his friends, he left his family, and went to his enemies and saw a young woman that he was forbidden to marry. Not because his parents said so, because God said, "You shall not intermarry with those who do not worship me." He didn't ask. He didn't come home and say, "Hey, Mom and Dad, I saw somebody. What are your thoughts? Right? What do you think about this?" He didn't care what God said about it. He didn't care what was wise, what was right, what would have been the good thing to do, what would have been good for him. What happened? I see it and I want it. I see it and I want it. Lust. I see it and I want it. No logic at all. No. Make it happen. You need to make this happen. And how often I've sat with guys that fall prey to lust and leads them down this pathway. And you know what they say? "I don't know how I got here." I'm like, "Yeah, you did. You know exactly how you got there. It started with lust. It started with something that said, I want that. I want that. And it doesn't matter what the cost is. Doesn't matter what I have to do to get it, I want it." And that's where lust leads us, to this place where we're no logical thinking whatsoever. So it starts with lust, and then there's another one, entitlement. It's not just I want it, it's this, I deserve it. Oh, I deserve this. And as guys, we fall prey to this one a lot. Because guys, we work hard, right? Right? We work hard, and so we deserve it. We actually deserve to have a little bit of fun. We deserve to have a little bit of pleasure. We deserve to blow off a little bit of steam. Hey man, I work hard, so I want to have some fun. It's okay for me to go and have a drink. It's okay for me to get a little bit drunk. I won't get all the way drunk. I'll get a little bit drunk. It's okay with me to have a little fun because I put up with my spouse all the time and she's always nagging me. I work hard and I deserve this entitlement. And if you check out what happens with Samson, there's a lion that approaches Samson, and as any normal guy would do, he would kill the lion with his bare hands, right? Because that's what we would all do. If a lion came in, well, it's just a lion, I'm going to tear it apart with my bare hands. Right? That's what he did. He tore it apart with his bare hands. Ripped it, boom, like that. That's how strong this guy was. And later, when he went back, there was the carcass. And he saw some bees making a nest in it, and he took a scoop of the honey. Now, what was a Nazirite governed by? Couldn't eat anything unclean. I would probably go out on a limb and say eating honey from a dead lion would probably be unclean. Samson, you didn't need is this okay? No, this is not kosher. He knew that was not kosher, but he didn't care. Just like he didn't care that he was going to marry a Philistine woman when that was forbidden by God. He didn't care that his life was governed by the vow that he would not eat anything unclean. Hey, I deserve it. Man, I'm the one that killed this lion anyways, so I deserve this. It says in Judges 14, 8 and 9, sometime later when he went back to marry her, he turned aside and looked at the lion's carcass, and there was a swarm of bees and some of the honey which he scooped out with his hand and ate as he went along. Nothing unclean. The same God that gave him the power to rip apart the lion, he now betrays that God. The same God that forgives your sin every time that we go and sin again because we deserve it, right? Every time we pick up that bottle and we want to get drunk, well, I deserve it. And I've been clean a whole lot. Every time we pick up that substance, every time you click on that device and brings you to a porn website, I deserve it. I deserve that. I've been clean for a long time, and plus my wife is so busy and I'm not getting anything there, so I deserve this, man. I'm a working man. I've got needs. We keep telling ourselves that. What is that? Entitlement. I deserve this. I'm not hurting anybody. What's another high? What's another one-night stand? What's another peek at another porn site? What's another sip? What's another gossip session? I deserve this. Lust, I want it. Entitlement, I deserve it. And here's the one. that guys really struggle with. Pride. I can handle it. Pride. I can handle it. So he was not to cut his hair. He was not to touch anything dead, and he was not to drink any wine, not to get drunk, to be around any fermented drink. And look what he does in Judges 14:10. Now his father went down to see a woman, and Samson made a feast there, as was customary for the bridegroom. So Samson's going to marry this Philistine woman that he's not supposed to marry, and he's going to have a party where everybody gets drunk, and he's not supposed to be drinking. Right? And what it says, when it says they were preparing a feast, the feast was, it's called a mishteh. It was a feast or a party of celebration and an occasion for drinking. That's what this party was centered around. It was an occasion for drinking. What's Samson doing? He's throwing himself a bachelor party. Right? He's throwing himself a bachelor party. What's he saying? Oh, it's okay. I can handle it. I'm Samson. You know how strong I am? I'm not going to give in to the drink. You don't need to worry about that. I can handle it. You know what? I'm getting married. I deserve this, right? This is the party that I've always wanted. I could do this. He's drawn towards something like so many of us are usually drawn towards something that should be off limits to our faith. But yet we're still drawn to it. We're still captivated by it. And we say this, well, I can get a little bit closer. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty strong. I can get a little bit closer. And we continue to flirt because we think, like Samson, we're too strong. Well, I'm not going to get drunk. It's just a few drinks. I can handle a few drinks. With our spending, I'm not going to overspend. It's just one more flat screen TV. We need a flat screen TV for the bathroom. It's important for the bathroom. That new car, right? I can handle the payments. I can do all this. I need a girlfriend. I wanted to have a girlfriend. It's okay if she's going to spend the night. We're going to stay at opposite ends of the house. It's totally fine. We're totally okay. I'm too strong. I'm not going to give in to that. I can handle it. And Samson thought he could handle it. And you read the story of Samson when he begins to find this prostitute named Delilah that really takes him for a ride. And the fascinating thing is, Samson continues to flirt. Now, guys, I'm going to go out on a limb. When Samson meets Delilah, and Delilah's first words are, hey, why don't you tell me what it's going to take to bind you up and subdue you? If a girl ever tells you that, run. Just run. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. I'm just going to help you out there. Just go ahead and run. But what does Samson do? I'm Samson. I'm strong. I could flirt a little bit. And he flirts, and every single time she nags him. What's the secret of your strength? And he says, well, if you do this to me, I'll become as weak as any other man. And so what does she do? She does it while he's sleeping. And then she wakes him up. Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And he wakes up and he breaks the ropes. And he's like, what's happening? And she's like, oh, you lied to me. Don't you love me? Why don't you tell me what it's going to take to subdue you? Okay. If you tie the stuff in my hair, then I'll be as weak as any other man. And then she does it again. And so after, okay, one time, yeah, okay, I'm having fun. Second time, okay, this girl's crazy. Right? It's time to end it. It's really time to end it now. But what happens? No. Samson, and it says now she began to press him and vex him. And it says that he was vexed. And then finally, he says, all right, if you shave my head, I'll be as weak as any other man. And she goes to the Philistine. She said, come this time. Come one more time, because he's told me everything. And so what happens? She lulls him to sleep in her lap, shaves his head, and says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. And what happens? He gets up and he says this, I'll just do what I've done every other time. It's okay. I'm Samson. And some of the most tragic words that we read in the Bible follow that. Not knowing that the Lord had left him. Not knowing that the Lord had left him. So here you have a guy, Samson. I'm too strong. So much potential. He looked good, everything was fine, but he continued to flirt. Why? Lust, entitlement, and pride. And where did it lead him? To getting his eyes gouged out, to being made of a mockery in front of the Philistines, that they would bring him out and say, Samson, entertain us. And they would chain him up and he would walk around a pole surrounded by thousands of Philistines saying, look at what we've done to the great and mighty Samson. You don't think lust, entitlement, and pride are deadly? Look at Samson. I think he's a poster child for things not to do. And I find it so fascinating that when I sit with guys, and guys that are struggling, and guys that kind of have this reoccurring cycle of sin in their life, and you know what they tell me? I'm good this time. What are you doing differently? I'm good. It's okay, I'm good. I'm good this time. No. What are you doing differently? Because if you're not doing anything different and you're going to continue to entertain this stuff, your path is the same path as Samson. His eyes were gouged out. Think about that, how brutal that must have been, not knowing that the Lord has left him. Can I tell you, it doesn't have to end like that for you and I. It doesn't have to end like that. Another stat, Satan, he loves to make strong men weak. He loves it. He loves it. There's nothing more that he licks his chops when that can happen. But our God loves to make weak men strong. Right? That we serve a God that loves us so much that in our weakness is when he is strong, and our God is with us and he is for us. So as we move forward into 2023 as men, you want to be a strong man of God, and I hope you do. Admit your weaknesses, right? There's nothing wrong with admitting your weaknesses. Hey guys, this is where I struggle. Can you call me on it when you see it? Can you help me? And maybe it's getting a couple guys around you, say, guys, I want to be the man of God that God is calling me to be. And this is where I am weak, and I know that I am weak. So would you help me? Because the beautiful thing in the context of the family of God is we get to do this together. That we're not alone. That we're not going to leave any guy behind, that we're going to come and we're going to link arms and we're going to go after God together. And I think that's something beautiful that can happen. That's something beautiful that is happening here. But I believe for some of you, you're doing way too much flirting with the enemy. You're doing way too much flirting with the enemy, and you continue to flirt. And you know what? It hasn't cost you your eyes yet, but you're close. And that's not doom or gloom, that's just reality. And you're going to find yourself, hey, I'll just do what I've done before, not knowing the Lord has left you, because God will hand you over to what you want. And that's what he did to Samson. He said, okay, Samson, is that what you want? Here you go. My hand's off your life now. I'm still here. I'm a prayer away. All you got to do is call out to me. But that's what you want, I'm going to give it to you. That's the part that we don't like. That's the part that we continue to flirt with. The guys that I see so often shipwreck their faith, shipwreck their life. Is why? It's because lust, entitlement, and pride. I can handle it. Attitudes that we make weak men strong. This is what we need. Instead of saying, I want it, how about I want God? How about it's just one thing, I want God? How about in 2023, that's your goal. That's your mission. I want God. I want him. I want him when I wake up. I want him when I'm at work. I want him when I'm driving. I want him when I'm sipping my Tim Hortons coffee, because you know you need him when you're drinking Tim Hortons coffee. I want God. Not till I want it, I want him. I want him every single day, that I'm going to put him first, that I'm going to seek him, that I'm going to go after him. I want him, because that's where it starts. And then instead of saying this, I deserve it, how about this? I deserve death. That's what I really deserve. I deserve death. That's what I really deserve. I deserve death. And instead of saying, I can handle it, how about beginning to understand that you can't handle anything without God? You can't handle anything without God. And you begin to think with that mentality, I need God, I deserve death, and I know I can't handle anything without God. I need God, I deserve death, and I can't handle anything without Him. I need Him, I deserve death, and I can't handle anything without Him. Samson is a perfect example of what happens when you give in to temptation. What happens when you give in to sin. The wages of sin is death. Not a moment of pleasure, not just guilt and shame, but sin's purpose for your life is one thing, it's death. That's where it wants to lead you every single time. Every single time. The devil doesn't tempt you to want you to have fun. He tempts you to destroy you. Period. That's where he wants to lead you. He wants to lead you to death. And he'll use lust, and he'll use entitlement, and he'll use pride. I don't know the temptation you're facing. I don't. You can be open and honest about it. You can hide it and disguise it. Or you can be like Samson and say, no, I am too strong. There's hope, though, if you read this story, and I love it. And it puts it in the line, and it's such an interesting line to be in the story. But it says this, the hair on Samson's head began to grow again. It began to grow again. What was the source of his strength? It was his hair, right? It was that outward appearance that I am committed to God, that I am serving God. And though they stripped it away, it began to grow again. And the Philistines called to bring Samson out. They said, bring out Samson, let him entertain us. Samson with his eyes gouged out. And he says to the guy, bring him out, he goes, put me between the two pillars. Just put me between the two pillars. And he puts him between the two pillars that are holding up the whole colonnade, that all these thousands of Philistines are saying there could have been about 3,000 people up there watching Samson. And then he prays this prayer, Lord, let me die. Lord, let me die. Isn't it funny that Samson's last prayer should have been his first prayer? Should have been his very first prayer. God, let me die to myself. Let me die to my selfish ambitions. Let me die to my lust. Let me die to my entitlement. Let me die to my pride. Because what could have Samson done if he was fully committed to God? He did some amazing things, but he fell short of his potential because of pride, entitlement, and lust. And I think that is robbing so many guys of stepping into their fullness of who they are and who God is calling you to be. And I believe this year is an opportunity. You can't change the past. We talked about it last week. You can't change the past. Let it go. Let it go. All your failures, all the times you've blown it and you've fallen short, all the times you succeeded and it was amazing and incredible, let it go. Because that doesn't matter anymore. That's behind you, and there is a spotless future in front of you. And are we going to put God first? Are we going to put Him first? Are we going to die to ourselves every single day and say, God, I can't do this without you. I need you. Let Samson be a warning to all of us that God will hand us over to that which we want. If we continue that cycle, God will hand us over to it. And that's not like, ooh, that's a mean God. No, that's a loving God, because that's what you want. So He hands you over to it. Fell way short of his potential. But the hair on his head began to grow again. God, let me die. Can that be your prayer this year? Can that be the prayer of the men of Vanier Bikers Church? God, let us die. Let us die so we can be who you're calling us to be. Yes. Let us die to our pride, our lust, our entitlement, and let us live for you. And let us put our eyes and focus on you and lead our families well and lead our kids well and lead my life well and be an example and an ambassador to you wherever I go. When I'm out at a restaurant, that I'm not acting like a fool. When I'm by myself behind closed doors, I'm the same person that I am when I'm in front of people. God, I want to die. So I want to pray with you. I want to pray with you, then I'm going to hand it back over to Rick. And maybe you guys will pray with each other. I don't know. But I think what an opportunity before each of us. Before each of us to really be the man that God's calling us to be. Right? For you to be the man that God's calling you to be. Not the one next to you. Not the one on your left and the one on your right, but the one God's calling you to be. Because God made you and called you. And He's got a plan for you and a purpose for you. And you're not here by accident, and you're not taking up space, that there is purpose and destiny on your life that the enemy doesn't want you to step into, and God is waiting for you to step into. So 2023 could be your most amazing year yet. Yes. By saying this simple prayer: God, let me die. Let me die so I can truly live. So I can truly live. Father, I just thank you for your faithfulness. God, I thank you for these guys. Lord, it's amazing to see this many out. God, I pray even more than fellowship, even more than hanging out and telling jokes and connecting and laughing and eating food together. God, I pray that as the men of Vangy Bikers Church, that we're ready to die. We're ready to die for you. We're ready to die to ourselves so we can truly live for you. God, that we would lead the way in our families. We would lead the way with our kids. We would lead the way on our workplaces. God, we would lead the way pointing people to you. God, the world has yet to see what God could do with one man fully committed to Him. Lord, with 12 disciples, you changed the world. What could you do with these 50 guys sitting in this room? God, we have an opportunity before us to see something beautiful happen, to see men fall in love with Jesus, to see men become the warriors they're called to be, to see men step up and begin to lead in all aspects of their life. God, we simply surrender to you. And we say we can't do this without you. We don't want to do this without you. God, would you forgive us for our lust? Would you forgive us for our entitlement? Would you forgive us for our pride and our arrogance and thinking that we know better? God, we humble ourselves tonight. We humble ourselves. We say we just need you. We just want you. You are all that we need. You're the fulfillment of everything our heart longs for. It's not going to be found in another drink. It's not going to be found in another substance. It's not going to be found in another relationship. It's only found in you. And forgive us for looking elsewhere so often. We just simply want you. We love you. We commit 2023 to you. That every day we're going to put you first. We're going to seek you first. We're going to come after you with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength. Because we know your plan for our life is great. And we just simply say, yes, Lord. In your wonderful name. And all the handsome men said, amen.